Let me get there we go. Well, hi guys. So I am super stoked because this is going to be like the fourth or fifth recording that I've been doing. I guess I have to start calling them episodes. It was never
Mhm.
really my intention, so it's kind of uh, not edited and certainly not professionally done. But I do want to express my incredible gratitude for your guys' courtesy for stepping up and wanting to talk about your different situations. But in order to not delay things, let us introduce ourselves. I think we decided Shelly was going to go first, so or Zig Zag was
Okay.
going to go first. So here we
I go
go.
by either. Would you like me just to begin by talking about kind of prep and just give a quick introduction of the overall trip?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's talk
Okay.
about we all have individuals. We got
Yeah.
plenty of time.
Well, like many people, I feel like I fully assessed the risks and what was going to be needed to mitigate any of the known, typical things that might happen on a trail. I had originally planned to do a 500-mile trek, and that's what I had a permit for, going through the Sierras. And so, I carried the KT tape, the medical tape, the ACE bandage. Certainly had my Garmin there, certainly had elevation medication as well. And I started out at Kennedy's Meadows South. And I really was taking my time because I'd never done anything like this before at that level of elevation. And I was doing great. And I even made it to Forester Pass. I was stoked. And it was time to resupply, which is what I did very easily. And as I was coming back in from Independence. I had left the night before. I had left fairly late because it was super hot that day, and got a great night's sleep, and then headed towards Glen Pass. And originally, I was going to hold up at the base of Glen Pass, but around 1 o'clock, I was feeling just so good and so strong and so hydrated. Everything was just magical. And I proceeded to go up Glen Pass, which is, it turns out, I've learned it's pretty hard too. Forester Pass was something, but Glen Pass was not to be, made light of.
What
It was
year was
hard.
this? What year was
Just
this?
it was last July, I
25.
think.
Okay.
Yeah, 2025. Yeah, sorry. So I get up to the top, have a bit of a little celebration with a couple of other hikers who I'd met coming up from out of Kennedy Meadows. One woman, her name is actually Maya, but I gave her the trail name Step Up, and you'll understand why in a moment. So we had a moment of celebration and started heading down the downward and going north from on Glen Pass. And she actually took off ahead of me. And the other gentleman had taken off pretty quick, so I never saw him again. But we got down a few thousand or a few hundred feet, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take off." And I'm, "Oh, great! All we got to do is just a couple more miles here, and we're camping." So I'm going down Glen Pass, and honestly, I have no idea. It just happened so fast. Within a half a second, perhaps a rock slipped under my foot. I really don't know what happened. I was flat on my face. And not only did I fall the distance into the ground, really, I went further than that because Glen Pass is so steep. And I had my bear canister, which had been fully supplied. So the weight of my backpack really added to the trauma of what was a head injury. And I believe you're going to show a bit of
I
those.
will.
I sent you a couple of photos. So my initial reaction was, oh my gosh, it's just disbelief, and I knew I was bleeding heavily, but I didn't really know that much. It didn't really hurt, to be honest. I didn't know what was going on other than I had to stop bleeding. And of course, I yelled for help immediately. And thankfully, Step Up heard me and she hadn't gotten too far. So she started marching back, thank God, because I really do credit her with saving my life. So while she's coming back, I'm scrambling to get things out of my backpack. And here is what I would say is so important is that, first of all, I would never have thought I would have a major head injury. That just would never have met met the list of things that could go wrong, let alone when it did happen. Really, I was just thinking I needed a Band-Aid. I really was. I really wasn't hurting. But I did know I needed help. I did know a lot of blood was coming out. And so she gets back up to me and I ask her to take a look at it, thinking she's going to help me, select from the choice of Band-Aids that I have. And as soon as I showed her, of course, I could tell on her face that this was going to be a helicopter ride out. So from there, I guess the next thing I would like to say is, while I'm sure I was in a certain element of shock, what really surprised me is how helpless I was. I mean, I was completely helpless, and my life had to be turned over to these now two people who were there helping me because there was literally nothing I could do to make the blood stop. Most importantly is Step Up, or Maya, had been encouraged by her partner, who's a nurse, to bring anticoagulant bandages, or the material that you put on the bandages. Thankfully, she happened to have that. So while she was working on getting in touch with through the Garmin, getting in touch with search and rescue, which I also have to give her a massive amount of credit, because I just don't know if I could have held it together like she did, to be able to manage dealing with me and manage making the SARS call. And then another gentleman showed up. Later, I learned that he had considerable search and rescue experience, but he was kind of being on the low and letting her take the lead. So together, though, they got me bandaged up. They had the initiated the calls, which, by the way, I could never have made those calls without their help because I had way too much blood coming out of my face.
You
And
guys,
so,
the gentlemen are at a disadvantage because they haven't seen the photo that I saw, and the
oh,
Peloton that is
yeah,
watching
yes,
you will have seen the photo, so they'll know ahead of time. So unfortunately, the two guys
yeah,
have not seen the photo. They're at a little disadvantage, but
yeah.
I think you'll
So
understand what we're talking about once you do see the photo.
the one the one thing I did hear is the gentleman that was with now accompanying Maya, I think his name is John. I could hear him telling her, tell them that it's a 6 inch by 4 inch flap. And I just went, no, no, I don't know what that is. I was just in disbelief. Um, and so he actually left, and I didn't really see him again. He felt that he needed to go get water. And in the meantime, everything is getting initiated. A couple of other people showed up to provide just some comfort care, which was greatly appreciated. And so then it was a matter of getting the ranger up to where the rescue spot was. And because that ranger had to make a decision of what helicopter needed to come. And so one important note here is that I did not have a serious head wound. In fact, as it turns out, I probably could have walked out a certain amount of distance to make an easier helicopter landing, but they didn't know, and I didn't know really at the time either. So the ranger arrives. It took him a couple of hours to get there because he's coming like 5 hours or 5 miles in the Sierras, and he is incredibly professional. Goes through all the important steps that he had been trained to do. Amazing experience in that way. Kudos to the rangers out there. Um, and then, kind of to wrap it up, I'm just laying there for what amounted to what, like 3 hours, and I'm looking up.
I'm sorry,
They did cover
that
me
didn't
up.
that didn't come through. How many hours?
It was a 3 hour wait for the helicopter. Well, part of that time was I didn't know this till later. These men that were kind of first at scene, as it turns out, they were having to move boulders so that this helicopter could land. And I'm looking up at the sky going, why isn't the helicopter landing? And they were very kind. They didn't tell me why. So they end up helping me as best they can to get down to where the helicopter could land, which was a bit scary. And the what I remember most is the medic on the helicopter saying, "We have 5 minutes of fuel before we have to get out of here." And so there was an element of, get your rear end on the helicopter. And that was a surreal experience flying out of there, of course, because you just, the viewing of Glen Pass there and being so close to the Sierras was pretty frightening. And then brought me to Lone Pine Hospital, which I received excellent care. And so now the next day, I get all stitched up, 60 stitches, and the next morning I find everything on my pack, everything is just full of blood, and I have to clean myself up and get myself now out of the town of Lone Pine, which I'll stop my story there because that could go on a little longer. Just getting myself home with a head wound was a bit of an ordeal. And the one thing that I will end this on so that other people can share too is that I was also very surprised by later because I did go out 6 weeks later after the healing of my wound that where I felt I was beyond the major trauma had healed. Um, I was very surprised at the PTSD I had when I went out for a couple more weeks up in Washington. It was very, very hard to get beyond that. Honestly, my wound wasn't nearly as bad as somebody else's wound could be, and yet I was afraid of rocks for several weeks.
Yeah, I bet. I
Yeah.
do want to include your exit story later. Let's talk to the other guys, but I think that's also equally important is how hikers get out once they get discharged from the hospital or once they have a different
Hmm.
plan after the initial trauma. So I guess you guys can rock, paper, scissors for who's next.
Okay, sure.
Go for it.
Age before beauty. Um, so my incident happened in Washington. I only have 150 miles left on the PCT, and it's all in Washington. And
And
Washington,
what year?
can
What
you hear
year?
me?
Yes. What year was this?
This was last July, and Washington's kicked my butt like 4 years in a row. I got a kidney stone 1 year, fires 3 years, and now this. And but I all I have left is Stevens Pass. What's that last pass where you go up to the border? Uh,
Hearts Pass.
which one?
Yeah.
Hearts Pass.
Yeah, to Harts Pass. So that's all I have left. And I'd hiked 450 miles of the Arizona Trail in the spring, so I thought I was in pretty good shape. Um, but by the time a few months had passed, I'd put on weight, my conditioning had fallen off, and I literally had a gut feeling that maybe I wasn't quite ready to do this stretch because many consider it to be the hardest stretch on the entire trail, especially because of the deadfall and particularly a 2 mile stretch that's apparently on a steep hillside where, there were two people helivaced out of there the week before I started, broken legs. So I didn't listen to my gut. I said, I'm going to go ahead anyway. And I tweaked my ankle, I don't know, day 1 or 2 in, not bad, but I'll keep going, just power through it. And then my sleeping pad went flat and I couldn't find the leak, so I wasn't getting sleep. And then as soon as I hit that stretch where, the hardest part starts, the weather shifted from warm and sunny and dry to wet and cold. And I knew there'd be a lot of log crawling and, under and over and around and just so I decided to bail off the trail at Lake Sally Ann and come down Katy Ridge. And I I was using Gaia GPS at that point, and it looked like the trailhead was not by the trail. It just so I did something stupid and I left the trail, which is already a seldom used trail, and I was coming across a hillside And I literally watched my leg break out from under me. It just caved under. It was like a slow twisting fall. I rolled forward, passed out from the pain, um, came to kind of looking up, and, like heaven, that the bright white light, and all of a sudden things kind of come in. And then I really felt the pain again in my right leg. And I tried to move and I couldn't. I couldn't even drag myself 3 feet down to a more comfortable spot. So I thought, well, if ever there was a time to use the inReach, this is it. And I remember thinking, I am so glad I dumped the Mini One and got the Messenger because it has the best antenna. And I was in a really thick forest canopy. So I hit the SOS button, went through all the usual stuff, and half an hour passed and nothing. And like, shit, shoot. And I really didn't know if I was going to get through at that point. So I started yelling on the very off chance that somebody might hear me. And yelling and just, I've never felt so hopeless in my life because the signal wasn't getting through. There was nobody there, and I was off trail. And this person emerged from the woods dressed in camo. He heard my yelling. He said, "Is somebody up there?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Who are you? What's your situation?" I explained to him, I broke my leg. I can't move. The SOS isn't getting through. And he said, "Okay, I'm going to go get my partner and we'll be here." So they came, and he and his girlfriend, well, now girlfriend, was their first date, interestingly. And they were scouting ridge lines for hunting season. They stayed with me. He had some first aid, wilderness first aid background. So they kind of got my foot was just flopping off left and right, and I could feel the bone on bone. Um, and they knew I was going to go into shock. They got a sleeping bag out for me. I didn't have any pain meds except ibuprofen, which did absolutely nothing. And about 10 minutes later, the SOS got through. And so we started the back and forth. And one of the first things they asked me, "What's the nature of your injury?" I said, I broke my leg. I'm fine. I'm stable, but I can't move. I'm going to need to be rescued. And they said, "Well, did you puncture the skin?" And I said, "No, it's fully contained." And they said, "Well, that's good."
It
Because
is.
otherwise you could have,
It is very good.
yeah, you could have, all kinds of new issues. And they said, "Well, we can't get a helicopter in there because the forest is too thick. So we're going to have to send a search and rescue team." And this is the Garmin, people. And no, at this point, it was a local person. They had dispatched it to the person. They said, "Well, it's going to take us about 7 hours to get somebody in there." I'm like, "Great." Well, it was 10:30 and 11. So I knew I had time. And they sent in a search and rescue team. The hunters helped them get to me. They had to take me down the hillside on a stretcher to a one-wheel gurney, down about 3 miles of trail to ambulance number one up the dirt road to ambulance number two up to the hospital in Wenatchee. And then I had surgery 2 days later at the Wenatchee Hospital. And from there, everything was just like I have a guardian angel. I ended up, I house sit, so I don't even have a home to go to per se. And I have Medicare and a good plan, so it covered everything. And I stayed in a sort of long-term rehab center there for a month. Um, and then I stayed with a friend in Eugene. Everything is healed. I'll be back on trail to finish the Arizona trail, possibly start working on the Colorado trail. And if that section of Washington opens up and is doable, given that the atmospheric rivers they had up there, I think it's going to be pretty bad this year
We'll see.
to finish. But some of the takeaways I have, things that I did that really helped out. Um, I don't know why, but I decided I wanted, I left a key under a rock at Hart's Pass just for the hell of it. And I took pictures of where it was. And when I was in Wenatchee, it's like it would be nice to get my van back here. And I contacted, I think it's Mary up at Mazama, and she
Hmm.
got a hold of George Delgado, Denim Dan,
Hmm.
who was doing that stretch, and he drove the van. He found the key, got in my van, and drove it down to Wenatchee. So having that really made a difference. Um, I have a whistle now. I think a whistle will work much better than yelling. It's 140 decibel bright orange, it's a light plastic whistle, but wow, makes such a difference. I had all of that in my fanny pack so I could get to it no matter what. And now that I have some oxycodone from the hospital, that's going to be in the first aid kit because I never want to go through that pain again. Oh my God. And, it was, and I made a mistake in getting off trail. I thought it looked like the trailhead was over here and I'm on the trail there. And it's like, I'll just cut over there. And I've been backpacking for 60 years. So I figured, I got this. And I just couldn't believe that my leg just folded out from under me. So now, thanks to all the PT I've had, I'm doing lunges and balance exercises and really building up my quads. And I'm 72, so I'm no spring chicken anymore. Um, but I really want to finish these trails. And yeah, so there we go.
Interesting set. Yeah. Yeah. And likewise, I would like to also discuss your exit plan outside of getting out of, getting your van and getting to drive home, I guess. But let's go with our last player.
Thank you. Yes, I was also thinking age before beauty as well. So, but I wasn't gonna say. I wasn't gonna say it. I wasn't gonna say it. But
Too deep, dude.
but no, no. So my name is Wesley. I happen to be a pharmacist by training, and my so the drugs that you guys are chatting about, I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, these are. I know exactly how to use these. So, but my trail name is Big Red Flytrap. I got it in 2025 when I was hiking the PCT. These stories I actually have three separate situations, but I'll just share one. I'll just share one for time.
You're
Um,
no, we're not in any hurry. You're welcome to
okay,
share.
gotcha. So there are like three situations, but one real situation for sure. But basically, it was in Mother's Day in 2025. It was day 8 for me. First time hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. Really, the first time doing any type of through hike, and I was grossly underprepared, both physically, well, just physically. I was physically underprepared and also supply wise as well. I thought as I was doing a good job in terms of prep and planning, and I was thinking about it for a couple of years, and I had the opportunity to do it, quit my job to do it. Started later than I wanted to. I currently live in Alaska, and I was up in Alaska prior to hiking the PCT. So at the time, it was around 30 degrees when I left in May in Alaska. And then when I get to San Diego, it was actually cold the very first day, but right after that, it got warm. And the one thing that I forgot to plan for were electrolytes. So you'd think as a pharmacist, you would have the knowledge to plan, especially for something like as it pertains to electrolytes. So, no, I completely forgot. And even on day one, I could feel like clamping in that first 10-mile section of the Pacific Crest Trail that I hiked. And when I got to Lake Moreno, I think Lake Moreno is that
Hmm.
20-mile area.
Yeah.
So I got there and I was able to get some electrolyte tablets, and basically I wanted to buy all of them they had, but the guy convinced me only to buy half. So I was able to get at least some electrolytes in the first couple of days. And I was basically adding it to just 1 liter of water a day. I didn't add it to more than just 1 liter. And by, let's see, day 7, it was insanely hot, at least hot for me, not for most people who are prepping. The other thing is I had knee surgery back in February of 2025. I had a partial meniscectomy, so I tore my meniscus partially back in July of 2022. Then, but it was inconclusive whether or not I actually tore it or not. So I didn't know, and I decided not to get surgery. And then in August of 2024, I completely tore it, and that I knew I did. So I had surgery in February, then I started hiking 3 months later. The knee itself was fine, but so that first week, whatever I brought for food wasn't appetizing to me, so I wasn't eating much. I was staying hydrated, but I had run out of electrolyte tablets. And the day before Mother's Day, so that Saturday, I remember missing the turnoff of where it was. It was around, well, I don't know, between 65 and 66, somewhere around there. There was a yucca plant that was like on the road. It was one of those road walks, and then there was a yucca plant. And I just remember looking, I was like, oh, that's weird. And I just kept walking. And then I was walking for half a mile, three-quarters of a mile. And I was like, why are there no footprints? Like, surely there are other people. Then I checked my far out, and sure enough, I'm half a mile off the trail. So I had to track back, and I missed the turnoff again. So I was like, where is this thing? And then I finally figured it out. But and then the very next day, I get to the watering hole, and it was right at that, right before Scissors Crossing. So it's that section where you're going up, and then it's like a 7 mile descent into that underpass where there's like a water catch, and you can get a ride into Julian. And I had made the decision the morning of the day before that I was going to take a couple of days off in Julian just to recover, resupply, find some more electrolytes. But basically, drank a bunch of water. So I'm like, okay, trying to use the advice that was given to me at Cluth, be a camel, drink a lot of water. Well, I'm pretty sure I drank so much water that my sodium concentration, I ended up doing everything hypo. So it was just too low. I made my electrolyte balance in my system just too diluted. So I'm sweating more than normal. And it wasn't, and that was the shade part. The first part of the day was on the shaded side of that ridge line going up. But every like 50, 100 steps, I was stopping, I was braking. Every switchback where there was like a rock you could sit on, I stopped. Eventually, I get to those 3 tent sites. They're like 0.1 mile apart, 0.2 miles apart. I'm climbing, and all I can think about is once I get to that ridge line, it's all downhill, literally and physically and mentally and physically and figuratively. And I'm trying to not be exhausted, not be no, I don't know, just try to push myself through it. So I noticed that all throughout this first 5, 6 hours of 4 or 5 hours of the day of hiking, I was just exhausted, taking way more breaks. Like I was dripping in sweat. I was sucking the brim of my hat because it had salt, sort of, but not really. And I was trying to get whatever I could get into my system. So I get to this first like tent site, designated tent site on far out, take off my bag, try to drink. I ended up drinking the rest of my, well, not the rest of my water, but most of my water. And then I put my pack on, and I'm like, all right, this doesn't feel great. So I hike another 0.1 miles, 0.2 miles to get to the second one. I do the exact same thing. And as I'm putting my bag back on, I feel a cramp in my neck and a cramp on my side. I'm like, okay, these are not where I normally cramp when I'm just physically exhausted. Normally it's like my calves or quadriceps for if I'm having a Charlie horse type situation. These are cramps in areas that I normally don't cramp in. And I get to the point where I'm like, I have to hit my SOS. This is embarrassing, but it's one where I'm like, I can't hike back out and I can't continue up. So I hit the SOS. I had cell phone service as well, but while I was hiking, I'd always have my phone in airplane mode and low battery mode just to conserve battery. So I hit the SOS. I get in contact with the Garmin people, where it was out of San Francisco, and then they contacted someone in San Diego County. Eventually, I speak with the sheriff's department there. I think it was sheriff's or fire, it doesn't matter. So, I speak with someone. They asked me like, okay, well, where did you park your car? And I'm like, in Alaska? I don't know. I'm just trying to, figure out like, listen. And I was basically, I had to explain to him like I'm hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. You can check where my GPS is. Hopefully it's in like a 5 meter radius of where I hit the SOS. And so I tried to get into a shaded area while this is all happening. There's no shade. I mean, it was also around 11:15, so sun is just right above you. And uh, like there were bushes, but they didn't really block the sun whatsoever. So I'm in contact. I turn on my cell phone just to see if I had cell phone coverage. I did. They called me on my cell phone. I chatted with the guy, and they were basically like asking, "Hey, where are you on the PCT?" So I was like, "Well, let me check my far out." So I'm like, mile 71.2. He's like, all right. He's like, "How do you know?" I'm like, "Well, there's a tent site right here. That's why." And assuming it's accurate, that's where I'm at. So, anyways, okay, I know where that is. And he's like, "Oh, cool." And he's like, "Is there any place to land?" I'm like, "I don't think so." And there really wasn't. So they had a helicopter fly by just to assess to see if he could land real quick. I could jump into it. No. So they had to get one of those helicopters where they had the winch come down with the guy repelling and stuff like that. Anyway, while I'm waiting, I'm trying to like find shade and stuff like that. And I have my hoodie on just to try to block and get the sun exposure. I was hiking in shorts this entire week, and my legs are just sunburned. I'm a white. If you can't tell, I'm white. So um, I'm a as South Park calls it, I'm a day walker. I can survive in sunlight, but I've got a red beard, so not full on ginger, but it's whatever. The point is that a couple of hikers came by. One of trail name was Gorf. And then her partner, I don't remember his name. I apologize, but they offered me like some Gatorade and a block of ramen, and I was like, I'll take it. I mean, hopefully the extra sodium would help. And then they kind of tried to set up some type of shade thing for me, but it was a nice gesture, but it was hard to do just because of like the layout of the shrubbery and stuff like that. And it didn't help that it blended right into the environment. So there's like, how do you, like when they were talking, search and rescue was talking, he's like, "Do you stick out at all?" I'm like, "Not really. I blend right into the environment. I've got nothing aside from my salt encrusted hat, which is no longer bright orange, but salt pastel hat." But anyway, they found me, get me up, I wanted to cooperate fully. They get me to a huge parking lot area where there's an ambulance waiting for me. Um, no position. When I tried to lie down, and I couldn't lie down because I was just starting to cramp. So I had to be in like this seated position in the shade and stuff like that. Eventually, I get um, winched up into the helicopter. And the most common question I get is, "Do you have any photos? Do you have any? Was this your first helicopter ride? Do you have any photos? Do you have any videos?" And I'm like, "No, I secured my phone because I was trying to follow the instructions of the people who were trying to save my life." So no, I didn't take like a selfie and be like, "Hey, look at me being wedged up," and stuff like that. So they checked my vitals out at the ambulance. I had heat exhaustion. Vitals checked out. They're like, "Look, we can take you to the hospital, but we don't even have a banana bag. It'd just be normal saline IV type situation." I'm mentally alert. I stopped myself before it became heat stroke. Luckily, I was able to recognize like something was wrong and I needed to get off the mountain that I was at, or not the mountain, but the hill that I was at. And so I asked them like, "How far away am I from Scissors Crossing?" And they're like, "About a quarter mile." I'm like, "Cool, just let me go." And mostly because I talked it through with the EMT people. It was, since I was like coherent, I was able to ingest things orally, keep things down. Most of my vitals were mostly in check. I went to Scissors Crossing, got a ride into Julian, took the next few days off, and then made a different plan. Got more electrolytes and got back on trail a couple of days later. So, but yeah, it was. I learned later that I wasn't the only person rescued that day from San Diego County. Apparently, it was the hottest day in recorded history for that day in that region. So that was cool. And my present to my mom on Mother's Day was not die. So,
Right on. Um, and you, what, let's see, you got helicoptered out and where were you brought to?
oh, quarter mile right by, like, there's a parking lot right next to Scissors Crossing, not the main parking lot, but there's like a
Mhm.
different like dirt road parking lot, a
On the
quarter
other side of the
mile.
bridge.
I think so. I don't remember exactly, but it was a massive flat area for a helicopter to
Helicopter.
land and an ambulance to wait there. So I just remember like asking them like, how far away am I from Scissors Cross? And they're like, right there. So I was like, cool. So
Gotcha.
luckily for me, they took me to exactly where I was going to hike. And then I ended up running into Gorf and her partner. We all got a ride back together. So the time from when I hit the SOS on Garmin, which I'm glad I got, great $50 spent, to when I think I got to the ambulance or I left the ambulance, it was 1:15. So about 2 hours. So two
Gotcha.
hours start to
Okay.
finish. So,
Yeah. Um, and and then you just continued on your hike after that once you recovered in
yeah.
Julian.
So then once I got into Julian, I bought like, I don't know, a gallon size bag worth of electrolytes, and I added a thing of electrolytes to every single liter of water from there on out for the rest of my hike. And that was Sunday. So then I got back on trail on Wednesday and continued hiking. And it seemed like I went from um, Trail Angel to Trail Angel to Trail Angel to Trail Angel all the way uh, after Warner Springs and after Idlewild, and all the it seemed like I was just going from Trail Angel Place to Trail Angel Place to Trail Angel Place for the next week or so while I was still like recovering stuff like that. But yeah, I got back on trail a couple of days later, and the plan I had seemed to be working. I didn't get heat exhaustion again, and since my kidneys are functioning, I filtered out whatever I didn't sweat out. But I will say that I got up like 3, 4 times a night to go urinate, and it seemed like all the electrolytes I consumed throughout the day got urinated out at night or something like that. So
Yeah.
that I never figured out, but I never got heat exhaustion, and whatever I did seemed to work. And so,
Yeah, right on. You did mention a banana bag, and a banana bag is literally IV
um,
fluids with
yes, it's
multivitamins and
it's
electrolytes in there.
yeah, it's like potassium. So
Yeah.
it's a layman's term for banana bag. It's like mostly potassium, chloride, and some dextrose and a few other things. And I could be wrong. So if anyone's watching this that actually knows what a banana bag is, and I didn't say the right things, I do apologize. I
Yeah.
work in outpatient, not inpatient pharmacy,
Yeah.
so some things I have forgotten since I graduated. But it's has a more than just normal saline,
Yeah.
and helps you recover a little bit better when you are, dehydrated.
Yeah. Well, back in the old school days, we used to steal them and give them to recover from alcohol. Not my story. I would never
Mm.
do that, but yeah,
Right, 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 right.
I've heard other people do that for when recovering from, drinking too
Hangover.
much the night before. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm an ICU and ER nurse, so
Okay.
so
Yeah.
um,
Very good.
let's so I did want to mention a couple of things that we were talking about, just because I guess it's my turn to talk. But one of the things was not only the banana bag, but it would be good. Doug mentioned, U-Haul mentioned the of his broken leg. So he also mentioned wilderness first responder class. So that's absolutely a class that any layperson can take. Is either wilderness first aid would be the first step, and then wilderness first responder would be the more hours, more college credit hours. So I highly recommend taking those classes, wilderness first aid. And I don't think you need a wilderness first aid to take a wilderness first responder. I think you can go immediately to wilderness first responder class. Um, but they're definitely better than just your basic first aid skills and your basic CPR skills. So highly recommend that. Um, we did talk a little bit about bleeding, and I actually have a video coming up because I cut my finger the other day and I videotaped it because I wanted to tell people, hey, if it's just a minor bleed, certainly not the same thing that Zig Zag was experiencing, but if it's just a minor finger cut or whatever, then go ahead and let it bleed because that actually helps you, that kind of cleans the wound up and lets the germs or whatever is introduced, the dirt is get flushed out with your bleeding. So if it's a finger bleed or a thumb bleed, definitely apply pressure and all that, but I wouldn't immediately put in a tourniquet to stop it from bleeding. Go ahead and let it flush out some dirt before you start applying pressure and stopping it from bleeding. Um, and then, of course, facial and finger bleeding is going to bleed a lot more. It's going to look like it's bleeding a lot more profusely than it actually is, but um, that's not consistent with the wound that Zig Zag has that Doug and that U-Haul and I'm sorry, Wesley, what was your trail name?
It's a big red fly trap.
Big
Mhm.
big red fly trap. So
Yeah.
um I
There's a story
so
behind it, but I'm not gonna share the story. It's a different, not the topic of conversation for this podcast. So it's a different
um
story for a different day.
so part of the things I wanted to discuss was our exit plans when what happens when you get discharged. So U-Haul had a van to go to. Were you able to drive that van?
Yeah, fortunately, it was my left leg that broke.
Okay.
So that was a real big plus. Something that made a big difference on my recovery was using a compression sock. And you can get compression socks that have a side zip on them, which is really nice. You can just slip it over your foot. And, if you got a broken leg, hauling a compression sock up your leg is going to hurt like hell. But with a side zip, you just get it over your foot, you pull it up, and the doctor's, the surgeon's assistant was amazed at how little swelling I had in the follow-up. Said, unbelievable. What are you doing? I showed him the sock, and I'm in a Tib Fib Facebook group, Tibula Fibula, and somebody mentioned that. We're all sharing our war stories and all that. So that made a huge difference.
It
But
also helps that you're healthy too, to begin with, because
yeah,
a lot of swelling has a lot to do with circulation. And so when you have good circulation from being healthy, then you will tend to be less swollen.
yeah, yeah. Um, Another thing that really made a difference was I kept hearing, "Don't chase the pain, stay ahead of it," and I really took that to heart. Because once you get behind the pain, trying to get over on the other side of it really takes a lot more effort than just being slightly ahead of it. I also wanted to get off the oxycodone as fast as I could because I know that stuff's not good for you in the long run, but boy, it sure made a difference during the really painful part. And I actually took a lot of photos of my rescue. My background's photojournalism, so I couldn't resist. I've got pictures of search and rescue crew picking me up and in the hospital pretty much the whole trip through and in recovery. I would also say that finding a good physical therapist makes a world of difference on recovery. Trust them, find a good one, trust them. And I'm also looking at getting Overwatch rescue service. I think all the states on the PCT actually kind of cover um, helivac rescue expenses, but still 80
Yeah,
bucks a year. And it
yeah,
sounds like they cover everything much better than Garmin. Just no questions asked. Just mail in your receipts, they pay it, and they get
yeah.
you to the hospital.
I highly recommend that. Yeah.
And
Me personally, this is just an opinion of mine. I just believe that most PCT hikers, you're not a weekend warrior anymore. You're now approaching professional adventurism, at least for the 6 months that you're on trail. And so therefore, it's like, hey, if you're going to be professionally adventuring, then maybe it's time not to rely on taxpayers to pay your dues when it's time to pay to play. And so I highly recommend that kind of situation. Search and rescue is free, but what happens is if you have, for instance, Overwatch or Garmin or any kind of other kind of insurance that's search and rescue capable, what happens is the search and rescue organization has the option of charging your insurance since you're insured for it. So they will, and sometimes they don't. So it's depends on the bean counters and all that. Um, but the search and rescue organization can say, "Oh, you have insurance? Well, since you have Garmin insurance, we'll charge Garmin for the search and rescue." So, one of the things I do recommend is to support the local search and rescue organizations of each county, because if you support them, um, then you'll get a chance to you know pay it forward. Even if you don't need the search and rescue, which I hope you don't, they'll benefit from your premiums. And there's some organizations on the West Coast that you can do that for. Um, and Zig Zag, what happened to your exit plan once you got discharged from the hospital? What was the plan there?
Um, well, it was very fluid. One thing that I would like to say is I would have had no idea in advance of this happening how much of an impact it had on so many people besides myself. And although certainly it was 100% an accident, and if something different had happened, I probably would have been able to help myself. But from the first person who was helping me to the ranger to my fiance and my family, I mean, there were a lot of people with such heightened concern. And I think that it's worth putting a call out that it's not just about us. It's a lot of other people on the trail were impacted, not just me. So, you know, it goes downstream.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
important to try to be safe just to prevent things so that other people aren't having to get involved.
yeah,
Going forward, though, I know that I'm going to be having a heightened awareness of the importance of me being able to be a first responder to help somebody else. So critical because you got to pay. That's a way to I can pay it forward. So going back to my exit, which is a bit comical because here I'm in the town of Lone Pine and great care. I hope that this comes across as is positive because I thought it was pretty awesome. It's such a small town; they don't have any Ubers, so the nurse actually who helped with the final surgery ended up driving me to the local hotel. And
wow.
so here I'm in a local hotel, and I'm not in a lot of pain. I guess mostly what happened is just a lot of nerves just got cut. And so, of course, I had a lot of, I'm sure, local painkiller anesthesia or whatever you call that drug, but in localized pain medicine. And so I'm getting myself in the hotel just trying to clean up. And again, so much blood. And even though I got in the shower and I'm trying to be careful in a hotel room where I need to be respectful of whoever else is coming behind me in the hotel room, and I'm just rinsing blood out of everything in the shower and putting things in the garbage that I know I'm not going to need, just trying to be super sanitation or heightened awareness of being sanitizing everything. And my fiance, he's trying to find me an exit plan because Lone Pine, there aren't a lot of options. Um, he was going to advocate for me to spend another night there and then ride a bus up to Reno due to the logistics that would have worked out. But I woke up the next morning and I have this huge bandage on my head, right? I look like I've got a, whole thing going on, way beyond just, a wound here on my head. I actually still didn't believe that it was that bad. Maybe I just optimist. I'm thinking, oh, this isn't that bad. Why did they give me such a big bandage? I thought they were just trying to cover up the blood, to be honest, because my hair had been saturated in blood. Oh, they were just doing me a favor to cover up the mess. So I get up the next morning and I just think, I got to get home. I got to find a way home. And so I went up to the front desk, and as it turns out, I was able to backtrack using the similar methodology that I originally got to the Kennedy South, and that was by taking a bus to Lancaster, getting on the train at Lancaster, getting back to LA. I'm trying to think of the airport for some reason. It's uh, um,
Not LAX.
yeah, the one north of that. Anyway.
Ontario.
Oh,
Is it Bob Hope? Bob
yeah,
Hope?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Burbank. That's the
It's
one in Burbank.
Burbank. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for helping. So
you're welcome.
anyway, it was definitely a trains, planes, and automobiles, about a 12-hour excursion, if I guess maybe even more, to get myself home. And people were so grateful. And one of the stories that I'll share that I really warmed my heart is I was in the waiting for the train in Lancaster, and a woman approached me and asked me what had happened, and I shared my story with her, and I could tell she was most likely a hiker, but it didn't look like she was really on trail still. And I said, "Well, what are you doing?" And she was getting off the trail also, and unfortunately, one of her parents had passed away. So, I think all of us have had experiences where we're out there on the trail, we're having these connections with people. That's why I do it. It's just intense connections that I'll never see that woman again, but I'll remember her forever. And her story is, really more significant than mine. So I got through TSA at the airport. They weren't sure about whether they wanted me to even get on a plane. And I said, I guess I'm okay. They did a CT scan. I'm okay. But I was still kind of a bloody mess because I didn't have an abundant amount of clothing to change into. I just did my best to take care to get home. And then my fiance got me to a place where I got a hamburger. How's that for a story?
Yeah, that's a good
flew,
story.
flew into Portland and got a hamburger. And then from there, it was just a wound care. And there's a little bit of information out there, but what I learned is it's just time, and so many people were concerned that I had far more damage to my brain than the CT scan showed. And
Oh,
I
really?
just well, I just have people that are in the medical profession who are very concerned because
Hmm.
given what I had done, it's like, how could I not have a major concussion?
Hmm.
And but there were no signs of it. It was just, and I did share with Jay a photo of what my afterwards when I took all the dressing off, what my scar or the wound looked like, and that was actually the first time I had seen the wound, and
Wow.
I just went, "What?
Wow.
That's
That's,
worse." I
yeah.
was just, I thought, a few inches, something like that, but it was true to the original man's diagnosis on the trail.
Yeah.
It was
No,
a
when I
six
saw,
inch by 4 inch flapper.
yeah, when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, that's going to be the entrance photo right there." And I think these two guys are literally the only people at a disadvantage because
Oh,
I think everyone else will see that photo first. I'm also
oh,
wondering if Facebook will cover it up, will blur it out
oh, yeah,
because it is pretty severe. And I was like, I can't believe that you got sent home with that. So, yeah,
yeah.
we actually call that a degloving injury just
Oh,
because it's very consistent with when someone says 6 inch by 4 inch flap of skin is removed, then that's literally considered a degloving injury where skin is removed from whatever is underneath it. Basically, the dermal layers are removed from the under the dermal
yeah.
layers area. So,
I still don't feel anything. I have no feeling right here.
yeah,
I
that's
guess
pretty
it might
consistent.
take a year or so.
Yeah. So I'm not new to injuries. I injure myself all the time.
Mhm.
My big story with the what I was going to add have you add on to Zig Zag was I had a pretty severe motorcycle injury at one time, and it had been probably a year after my motorcycle injury where I was going to get back on my motorcycle and ride across the Bay Bridge, I think. I was living in San Francisco at the time, and it was just a beautiful day for a ride. And I thought, oh, that's going to be a great day for a ride. And man, literally like 30 seconds into that ride, PTSD hit me or
Mhm.
something hit me where I was literally scared out of my mind for no apparent reason. I had to pull over. I had to just stop and get a grip of myself and try to figure out what's going on. And then I still wanted to continue on my ride. And I just remember the the traumatic, paranoid feeling that I had trying to cross the Golden Gate Bridge on my motorcycle and just trying to like I've never been this scared about riding a motorcycle. I mean, I've ridden motorcycles ever since I was a kid. So, and then I can't remember. I just remember that initial maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and then it dissipated, and I'm back to riding again. So, just wanted to introduce that sometimes it's weird when PTSD hits you, or I don't even know whether to call it PTSD or not because I don't want to cheat people who have lifelong issues with that. But it was definitely a strange. Uh, moment in and memorable moment in mine. Would you describe your version of I again, I don't want to cheat people who have like lifelong PTSD, but I don't know what else to call it. So uh you Zigzag, would you explain yours?
Yeah, and yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from because it's not to be made light of, but we do tend to in our society use that term fairly loosely. But in my experience, though, just crossing the curb the first week after I got home, or crossing, the street and stepping down a curb, I literally had to hold on to my partner to have him help me cross the street. And then what happened from there on is with every 3 days or so, I would try to go a little further and a little further. But I will say, at week 5, I went to Cascade Locks and I thought, okay, I'm going to hike south. It happened to be trails weekend at Cascade Locks, and I thought surely there's going to be a lot of people on the trail. And I started going south because I knew the trail pretty well. And I got maybe 4 miles and out going south, and I didn't see anybody. There was nobody on the trail, and I just literally just was shaking, and I had to turn around, like hyperventilating, kind of shaking. Um, so I think I had to do that though to get past my fears. And even when I did eventually get on the trail on going north out of Cascade Locks, I went out for 2 more weeks. Um, you hit these moments where you just have to slow down and take a breath. And it usually, for me, it was always involved rocks. It's like there's some rocks coming up. Better take a breath.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys experienced any kind of hesitation part of that. Again, I don't know what else to call it, so I'll just call it hesitation for right now. But it sounds like you dealt with it, U-Haul, with being more ready next time, right? You've got you've got the whistle and the equipment now to be able to deal with it, but next time.
Yeah, I don't know if you know the Enneagram, but I'm a type 6, which is like I'm going to be prepared for everything. And just a side story, I remember one time I had an allergic reaction where I think it's called anaphylactic shock. Your tongue starts to swell up and block the airway, and I'd forgotten my EpiPen. I was on trail,
Wow.
and the doctor and I was camped by a beautiful lake, and it's like, okay, well, it's a good place to die. And but I had Benadryl and Pepsid a doctor had said if you take Pepsid with the Benadryl, it kind of supercharges it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to put that to the test.
Yeah.
And I sat down and took the two, and it worked. So that's a
Wow.
good trick for your.
Yeah. No, that's a great trick.
Uh,
Yeah. Both are antihistamines.
yeah, as far as being prepared, my first aid kit is pretty heavy. I'm trying to thin it out. So my pack is lighter. I think my base is down to about 15, 16 now. When I
Yeah.
got a trail name U-Haul, I was sitting around 24, 25. Um, but post surgery, one of the things that helped was recovering on a leg break. They said, really take it easy on the beginning part. Don't push it because you might end up doing more damage. But once I got into full weight bearing, I kind of found a spot where I could start pushing it pretty well. Not too hard, but you kind of just get a feel for where that line is. And I was full weight. They took me straight from non-weight bearing to full weight bearing within the injury was July 20th, and I was full weight bearing on September 11th. So
Yeah.
6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Yeah. No, we want you full weight bearing because that's how your bones heal. Your bones will heal when it's like it's starting to experience weight. It'll start to heal faster.
Some
Um,
Something else that was a big help was in that Tib Fib group I'm in, some people said, my leg forgot how to walk. Like it just, that because they were off their leg for 2 months and they started walking again, their leg didn't know how to walk. So what I did was use the parallel bars and I would put my foot down on a surface and just kind of go through the walking mode, even though it was non-weight bearing, just for my leg to remember this is how you walk. And I think it helped because, I got out of that damn boot within 3 days. Um, so yeah, I think that's another nice little trick to have.
yeah, for sure. Anything to add with that? Big red fly trap?
Yeah, so not really. I mean, I came back with a plan. I did question whether or not I was going to return to trail or not. Now, when I was in Julian, my uncle lived nearby, so he took me to Safeway, a nearby city, and that's where I loaded up on the electrolytes and stuff like that. So I was able to, I made a plan of attack, decided to take it day by day, just try to do one step at a time, and seemed to be working whatever I decided to do. So regarding the tidbit about the Pepsid and the Benadryl, yes. So, like, if you are having an allergic reaction and you don't have an EpiPen, whether you've never been prescribed one or you simply forgot it, yeah, taking the Benadryl, which is a first generation antihistamine, you can also add like Cetirizine or Claritin, or no, Cetirizine, Zyrtec, or Loratadine, which is Claritin. Benadryl is diphenhydramine, so you can add a second generation um, antihistamine. And then the Pepsid is just another histamine receptor used for heartburn, but it's a H2RA, so histamine 2 receptor antagonist. So that combination is like a poor man's over the counter trick to help. Now, you're going to probably get drowsiness and dry eyes, but to be honest with you, that's preferable to anaphylactic. So
Yeah.
it's one of those where like you're going to get those are the potential side effects and maybe a headache too, but trust me, it's better. So that is a very, very good trick, very simple over the counter. And most of those are in those pre-made medical kits, or if you just want to make your own, make sure you have those three in there. In addition to if you do experience heartburn or some allergies, it can be like a quick fix for to get you by until you get to an area where it can be addressed more, whether it's urgent care, walk-in, or the ER. So, no, it's a good trick. It's a good tidbit. Something that simple over the counter. So, in terms of exit plans for like my particular situation of the story I shared, luckily for me, my uncle was nearby and he was able to spend a day with me, and we also had that famous pie at in Julian, so that was
Mom's
nice
pie.
as well. Mom's pie, thank you, thank you. So that was good. It was nice to interact with my mom's brother. So and he wanted me to come to back to Orange County with him. He's like, just I'll get you a hotel. You can recover there. And there's like, no, man, no, 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 no. If I go that far off trail, there's a very possibility. And I was like, no, I need to stay close to the trail. And I already stayed at that Gold Rush. I was staying at the Gold Rush Hotel, very nice hotel, by the way. I had to tell all the foreigners, like, look, this is not a normal hotel for America. This is like an exception to the rule. But 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 I knew that like if I went too far, I'd be like, ooh, it's gonna be less likely for me to get back on trail. So I wanted to get back on trail once I had a plan of attack, changed my eating habits to make sure I got calories in. I switched from what I was doing to cold soak ramen and tuna that way I could get sodium in addition to all the electrolytes that I was already doing. So yeah, it was not
Um,
necessarily an exit plan. It was more of like plan of attack to get back into it to see how the next couple of weeks went. And I remained on trail until I had to get back off in the CLS, so which is a different story.
right
A
on.
question for both of you. Were you both intending to do the whole trail? Or were you
Yeah,
section?
so my intent was to do the whole trail. I ended up doing 1,001 miles throughout the course of it. And there was a section where I got off trail for 6 weeks, partly due to physical exhaustion. And then I decided to mail my gear ahead where I was versus like carry it around. I took my original plan was just to take 2 weeks off, and I went to go visit some family in the lower 48 since I was in the lower 48. One of the living in Alaska is fantastic. One of the downsides about living in Alaska is if you need to get somewhere, you got to leave Alaska first. So it just adds an extra layer of logistics, which kind of inconvenient, but I don't know. It makes up for living in Alaska. Anyway, I'm down in lower 48, so I decided to go visit my nephews and visit my dad and visit my mom. And so I decided to mail my gear ahead of me because I was in Bishop at the time. So I mailed it ahead versus like carrying it around the United States in an extra duffel bag type situation. Well, it got lost in the mail and then it got rerouted back to Alaska. And that was like another 4 week ordeal. So I was off trail for like 6 weeks. But
Hmm.
um, um,
So you did 1,000 miles.
so I basically, thank you. I was trying to figure where the hell was I going with this. I'm sorry. So I did 1,000 miles in various sections, mostly the desert, part of the Sierra, Oregon, and then I skipped ahead just due to time constraints. And I knew like once I had skipped and got off trail unintentionally for 6 weeks, two of them being intentional, four of them not. I knew that like, listen, I'm going to come back in the future to do those sections I haven't done, but I tagged both ends of the border. So I started in Mexico and I did go up to Hart's Pass and do that section. And so about when it was all said and done at the end of the summer, it was 1,001 miles exactly on the
Yeah.
PCT.
And
So
Zig Zag?
Oh, I'm primarily a section hiker. Last year was my first bigger ambition. I had a 500 mile permit. And so I was super excited. So I was very, very disappointed when I was only able to do a couple hundred miles. So yeah, it hurts. It hurts when you get
that's a couple hundred
slammed.
miles is still a lot though. Like I mean,
Yeah,
that section is not
Hmm.
easy. That pass was not
yeah.
easy. Like I
Well,
remember
I,
that
Yeah.
pass. It's
I
a
was so
terrible
ready,
pass.
you guys. I was so
Yeah.
ready.
In 23, there were two helicopter rescues off Glen Pass on the north side again. 23 was that heavy snow year. And what happened was the second hiker actually was trail angeling both hikers, but I didn't know that. So I had contact with both hikers, but I didn't
Oh,
know the situation was unfolding day after day. But I guess the first hiker got rescued off by helicopter because of a slip down Glen Pass. And then the second hiker uh, slid down the exact same spot. They were both, there was a bunch of, oh, I forgot the term of it. Those fake post holing where you follow post holes to nowhere. And then,
mm-hmm.
so they were both following the same track and they both fell at the exact same place. And the helicopter crew thought the second person was much more injured than than they were injured because the second hiker um was over the blood of the first hiker. So
Oh,
there were blood remnants from the first hiker that apparently the second hiker was in, and so they spent lots of time, and she was saying the hiker was saying that they were okay, but I guess the helicopter crew was not believing them because of some leftover blood from the both were minor injuries and both went on different parts of the trail but stayed on the PCT after their helicopter evacs. But but it was definitely a notable situation. Um, I also wanted to touch on loss of consciousness or LOC. So if you're going to press your button, one of the very first questions that your rescuer will ask you is, did you lose consciousness or did you have a positive LOC, a positive loss of consciousness? So that's really important when it comes to head injuries. For instance, I wanted to make sure that U-Haul broke his leg and that he didn't fall, hit his head, and break his leg. So my first question would be his loss of consciousness. And since you actually did hit your head, I would immediately ask you if you had a loss of consciousness. If you had a loss of consciousness more than seeing stars, like it, I don't know about you, but I've lived a pretty rough life, so I've hit my head a couple of times. So I've
mhm,
seen stars. That doesn't
mhm.
count as loss of consciousness. If you've been out cold for, 15, 20 to 30 seconds, that is considered a loss of consciousness, not just seeing stars. So if you lose your consciousness, then there's a certain injury that we are concerned about in pre-hospital and emergency care that can cause it's actually pretty indicative, what we call a lucid interval. So you get knocked out once, that's your first loss of consciousness, and then you're fine. I'm okay, I don't need anything, I don't need anything. And then 24 hours, within 24 hours, sometimes it's 72 hours now, we're looking at, you lose consciousness again. So you had a lucid interval. There was a time between the two loss of consciousnesses that you're awake and lucid. There's a certain type of injury that it's kind of the myth that I'm pretty sure all of us have heard. Don't let him fall asleep because we want to make sure he's awake. That's kind of a urban myth, although it is slightly true. So I don't want to tell people not to do that, but that's because the second loss of consciousness happened, and so that's what the person who's trying to keep you awake is trying to prevent, but it's not really a preventative measure. However, it is important to get down to immediate medical attention when you do lose consciousness from a traumatic injury, for like when you bump your head. Um, it's important to get down to base so that you are very close to a medical care facility should you lose consciousness a second time. So I just wanted people to be aware of that. So that definitely, that's my first question to anyone who is injured out in the field is, did you lose consciousness? And then I go through what day, what's your name, what date is it, what's the year, and where are you and what were you doing? Those are called your uh, awake and alert levels of consciousness. So I want you to be awake and I want you to know who you are. I want you to know the date and time and year and or specific. Usually I just want to know if you know what year it is, because if you can't tell me what year it is, then I'm my antennas go up. And then I want you to know where you are. So I'm hiking the PCT, somewhere north of Julian or south of Julian, and then I want you to know what happened. I took a fall. I hit my head. If you can't tell me those, my alert levels go up, and the situation is bumped up to more critical, so my response time goes up a little bit based on that. So that's a loss of consciousness, LOC. And then U-Haul mentioned nature of injury. That's basically what happened. I was walking and I watched my leg break, and that helps me a lot. Um, in our last talk, we were talking about how important it is for your emergency family member to know what your situation is. And in our last talk, I wanted to also mention on this talk, photos are really important. So if your husband, if Zig Zag's husband had a recent photo of her, then the helicopter crew could have a visual of what her backpack looked like, how tall she is, how much she weighs, what's, how even how healthy he is, or how sedentary we are, is based on a lot of information can be passed on to a photo. So I highly recommend your significant other, whoever has your Garmin, on the other side of your Garmin plan, to have a recent photo and a plan for where you are. Uh, and you can get trail angels. I generally am the emergency contact to maybe 4 or 5 internationals a year. And that's basically what I ask them is send me a photo of where you're going. What are you doing? And when are you going to contact me again? Or when should I start contacting you? Um, and we already discussed wilderness first responder classes. Um, and do you guys have anything to add to our presentations? This is basically a free for all. We're not timing anything, and I just wanted to again be benefit the 2026 and future hikers with our little talks.
Yeah, definitely that search and rescue, just the basic search and rescue that Garmin provided, that $50 thing. And I'm glad I got it. I mean, I was planning on getting it anyway. Just having that is definitely, gives you peace of mind. I never thought I was going to use it, and on day 8, I did. And I used it one other time in the trail near Cascade Lodge. So I got caught in like storm situations, like a hypothermia type thing. But that one wasn't as ended up canceling the SOS because anyway, I'm not going to get into it. Um, but no, just having that I think is a must, especially if the technology is there. That $400 or 500 just to get it, and then the $50 or whatever the price is yearly thing. Like a helicopter ride, probably 50,000 to 100,000, depending on which unit it is. And in the bill after it was all said and done, I think it was like 130 some dollars, which I was able to convince Garmin to pay somehow. Like I remember getting the bill, but it was like, no, this should be covered under the policy. And I explained, and I sent him the policy. He's like, yep, you're right. So, but I mean, just something like that just gives you a financial peace of mind. Also, safety also provides the people, your loved ones who are like my mother and other people who are like, please don't die. So it gives them an opportunity for that. So that's the only thing I can recommend. It is definitely like, oh, I don't know if I can budget for this. I would say budget for it, regardless of your level of income or status. That's definitely one thing you should definitely plan for.
Yeah, and point noted for sure.
I would say whistle. Definitely an inReach. Don't get the mini one. The thing's a piece of shit. It will not punch through. Um, I really recommend the Messenger. I guess though the new Mini 3 has a good antenna on it. Um, do have some intense pain drugs if you can get them. It would have made a world of difference for me. And I agree about having somebody have all that information about you. Probably in my case, it would be my brother. So wait, I could send him a photo or one of my friends. Yeah, and Yeah, I think that covers the gist of it.
Yeah.
Be smart, be contextually aware and listen to your gut. If I had listened to my gut and really realized I wasn't ready to do that stretch, um, well, I wouldn't have gotten to learn how good a thing I should have done there.
Any
Yeah.
any uh, any addition to everything that we discussed, Zigzag?
Oh, well, mine is more just based on how gratitude. I have so much gratitude for the people around me from we're, it's hard to understand how amazing people can be until you have a situation like this where so many people who are complete strangers step up to help you. You know, the professionalism of the SARS people and the Rangers. My biggest takeaway is could I have could I have done the same? And I got to be honest with myself. I couldn't have. I mean, maybe I would have been able to step up, like my friend who helped me is now her trail name is Step Up. But I just don't. I really don't think I would have been prepared at the level that she was, and so it's now on my shoulders and my responsibility to be there for somebody else and do my homework and become prepared, so I can step up if need be.
Yeah, well, and then Doug, just specifically for you, I this is not really where I bring backpacking, but with other things, actually, if I'm not going for several days, I might consider bringing it. But I also think about like I'm thinking about you going in anaphylactic shock next to a lake and just kind of giving it all up. I'm thinking you should have a like a potable antiseptic with you just in case, like large quantities of potable antiseptic right before your throat closes up, you can chug it down real quick and then enjoy the lake.
And a septic. I guess I'm flew over my head. You mean bring some mushrooms?
Well, something with high like high alcohol content would be
Okay,
like
got yeah, yeah,
would like take care of some bacteria,
yeah.
you know.
Uh, thank you. I'll take that under advisement.
So, in any case, I think we discussed a whole heck of a lot. If you guys have anything to add, um, oh, basically, hey, do you guys have any are you guys on social media at all? I didn't ask that ahead of time. Because if you guys if anyone wants to what I was going to say is if anyone has any questions for these guys, then let me know and I will find a way to get in contact with them. And if they don't have a social media, or if they do, then you can ask them directly through their social media. So there you guys go.
I do.
Okay. And how do we get a hold of you, or how do we leave
They
them a
could
message?
message me through Facebook.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, same here. Facebook. My name is Doug Green with an E on the end. And so the URL is facebook.com/Doug Green.
Okay. And what I'll do is I'll have Doug send me a photo of one of his photo rescues. I think I already have a couple of them, but I'll put that in the comments and then your contact information in the comments of wherever you're seeing this. And Big Red Flytrap.
Yeah, so I'm at West Costco on everything, not having a monopoly on that username. So Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. Facebook, I'm Wesley Costco. So, but I'm easy to find, and my Instagram is not private; it's public. And I posted every single day of the trail, even the 6 weeks I was off. I had a weird thing there going for a while, but so yeah, my one of my pinned posts is me at the Mexican and Canadian border. So
Yeah.
should be good.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I'll make sure to add all of those in the comments of wherever you're seeing this video. So I just wanted to say thank you guys so much. We have learned so much from you all, and I am certainly a much better person from hearing your stories, and I'm certainly a lot more learned now than I was just a little over an hour ago. So thank you so much for your input, and looking forward to seeing you guys on trail eventually one of these days.
I want to just add too, thank you, Jay. I don't know
Yes,
how
thank
you
you.
do it, but it seems like you're everywhere all the time. Anything PCT. It's surreal. I don't know
Just
Yeah.
No,
how you
thank
do
you.
just wanted to
I second that.
thank you so much. I do appreciate it, but like I said, especially with the newbies that are coming in, the 2026 hikers, I kind of feel like we the more experienced people like us ha have some kind of I don't know how to say it. Wrap our our hands or our arms around them and kind of
wisdom.
support them. Yeah. Well, I don't even know if it's wisdom. It's much more experience maybe, but who knows? But just some additional support that they haven't gotten through other ways, other other avenues. But again, thank you so much. I have so much appreciation, and I'm so stoked to get a hold of you guys again. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jay, and good to meet you guys. See you guys down on the
Same.
trail on the road. So.
Nice to meet you all.
Exactly, Red.
Bye, guys.
Bye.